Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about ergonomics. We're going to talk about what it is and why does it matter. So first of all, ergonomics really affects the way we work every day, day in and day out. It's the laws of work and the science of work. It studies our efficiency in our work environment. And in this case, we're really going to focus on workplace ergonomics and making a better work environment for your workplace physically. While it is impacted environmentally and things around you, the focus of this webinar will really be about the physical space that you work in. So I want to start off first with the why behind ergonomics and why it's important. How many times have you found yourself, with tightness in your muscles, with wrist, elbow, back pain, headaches? I want to introduce you to the concept of the kinetic chain. So over here in this little image, it kind of shows you or illustrates that kinetic chain. So if you have discomfort in your heel, let's work our way from the bottom to the top, then you might walk a little bit differently to compensate for that, thus having a little stiffness or pain happening in your knee, and then a little bit of an ache in your back because now you're compensating with your posture. And then you may even find because of that, you might sleep differently. You might, you'll continuously walk differently or adjust your gait. And then you might even actually have a crick in your neck or just more tension in your shoulders and back muscles, thus causing a headache. So you can kind of see that kinetic chain. It goes up the kinetic chain and then back down the chain as well. So that headache even affecting a little bit more stiffness in your neck and shoulders and back, and then overall just more stiffness and tightness throughout the rest of your body. So really that kinetic chain, connectedness from head to toe, from the bottom to the top, and from the top all the way down to the bottom. A little bit more background about ergonomics. So again, it's studying how we work efficiently. How many times, or studying how we work physically, how many times do you find yourself, hopefully not sitting in all of these positions necessarily, but I'm a yoga fan, so I had to throw that one in there, but slouching, kind of leaning back in your office chair or hunching forward, or not even like maybe a sufficient workspace at that point in time, maybe sitting on your couch, depending on if you're working at the house, or just, not having a great work spot to begin with. So a couple things that feed into our ergonomics is repetition. So how often do you have to reach for the phone? How much do you type each day? Do you type all day? Is it intermittent? How often do you use your mouse, and how far are you reaching to get that mouse? How often do you reach for anything at your desk? And then again, thinking about the distance that you're having to reach when you grab it from your desk. Posture. Do you lean over your computer? Do you lean back? Do you sit in awkward positions? Do you sit on one foot? Do you always cross your legs? Just thinking about those types of things with your posture and habits that we form too while we sit at the desk, especially during longer hours. Contact pressure. Where does your wrist sit? Where does your elbow sit? How cushioned is your seat, or how not cushioned is your seat? Is it a hard wooden chair? Can you add a pillow to it? And we'll talk through some other suggestions as we work our way through this webinar. But pressure, point, posture, and the repetition, how often we're doing certain things, all feed into the daily workflow. Doesn't matter if you sit at work or stand at work or on your feet. These are all things to consider. A couple other things to consider is just to touch on briefly is new trends out there in the ergonomics world. I love this little cartoon over here. It's always kind of coming out with something new and how to use it, and we have to learn how to use it too. And then they're all, always like it's going to increase something or do something better for you, where not always is that the case, but there's a couple of different things kind of coming up or bubbling up in the market over the last few years, especially recently with trends and increasing TV and screen time with this virtual atmosphere we're all working in. Blue light glasses is one of those. Blue light glasses take the glow from electronic devices and help suppress that glow coming in. They do show that the glow from devices could suppress melatonin. Melatonin gives us the ability to help fall asleep and stay asleep. Remote working plus TV watching plus looking at phones is all increasing our screen time right now. Blue light blocking glasses have been shown to help lead to a better night's sleep. And overall, I've heard kind of like consensus from even like some eye doctors is they certainly don't hurt, and in many cases they do help. And you know, they're very inexpensive out there on Amazon. Like sometimes you can buy just the 3-pack for $10. Sitting disease. This is something that was coined, probably about 5 to 7 years ago, but really it took a look at some deep research around sitting and increased length of time sitting and what happens to us. So sitting too long does increase our risk for chronic disease. So always encouraging you to get up and move around throughout your day. It'll help not just your mindset, but also your body to feel better physically. Exercising actually does not offset the negative impacts of sitting too much. So if you work an 8-hour day behind a computer and then you head off to exercise class for an hour, it's not actually offsetting sitting all day. So still encouraging to get up and move throughout the day on top of that exercise regimen. Sitting also puts the most pressure on your spine. So you're sitting directly on your tailbone, which is like your lower lumbar area, and then up the rest of your spine. And then, you know, depending on your posture throughout the day is also going to impact your spine and other aspects of your body. Instead, get up and move around the office, your house, et cetera, multiple times per day. Maybe fill up your water bottle multiple times per day. You know, I try to get outside and just step outside to get a breath of fresh air. Or go downstairs and then come back upstairs and then need one more thing and go back downstairs. So almost you have to be a bit more intentional about getting up and moving around, especially if you're on someone who's on kind of back-to-back phone calls and things of that nature. Stand-up desk. Stand-up desks are very popular. They're becoming even more and more popular over the past few years. They do often create an easier method of standing and working when they're used. You know, we've seen a lot of times like we want one or somebody might want one and then they're used very minimally. So really think about, you know, if you're going to use one, you have to be intentional about reminding yourself to stand up and use them. And if they're used incorrectly or without proper ergonomics in place, they can actually cause just as many issues as sitting. So have someone evaluate your workspace or use the slides in this webinar to help evaluate your workspace and the possibilities of the usage of a stand-up desk before you purchase one. And there are ones that are better quality than others as well. All right, so we're gonna kind of pinpoint one of these, a couple of these items that are really important when it comes to ergonomics. And that first one is posture. So it doesn't matter whether you sit or stand all day. Think about your posture. Do you hunch? Do you tend to round your shoulders forward? We do all of our work in front of us. It doesn't matter whether you're a clinical worker, standing at the bedside, you're really hunched forward, you're leaning over a patient, or you're working at a computer station, standing up or sitting down. You're still doing it in front of you, which makes us tend to round our shoulders forward, or we lean forward maybe to see better, or just kind of relax our back even. So don't hunch, don't slouch. So don't round your shoulders forward, but also don't like lean forward or even just lean way back. Do sit up straight or stand up straight. So think about draw your shoulder blades back, sit up nice and strong. Even use your core. Your core is your center of your stability. So think about, you know, using your core, sit up nice and tall, just like our mothers probably said at one point in our life, sit up straight. Relax your shoulders though. We tend to kind of like, the more we think about sit up straight, we tend to tense up our shoulders and our forearms and our elbows and everything. But think about, you know, can you just kind of draw back a little bit, sit up nice and tall, but keep your shoulders relaxed away from your ears. Relax your forearms and elbows to decrease tension in your head, neck, and shoulders. And then when it comes to how far you're reaching for things, everything should be within arm's reach. You shouldn't consistently reach really far away for your phone or really far away for your mouse. Or your keyboard for that matter, or things that, think about the things that you consistently need and they all need to be within arm's reach. The rest of the things can be further away or spread out more on your desk. All right, eyesight. So when you are looking, and you can help reduce eye strain by using the 20-20-20 rule. So I love this little graphic here. Think about every 20 minutes, can you take a 20-second break from a screen and look at something else 20 feet away. So for me in my room, I'm like looking across the room, or I take a glance out the window. It's mainly, I think, to kind of get your eyes off of the screen, give your eyes a break. They're spending a lot of time focusing on the computer screen. If you've ever taken, I always find it insightful, like if you've ever taken a video, like, and tried to film your screen, you can see all of the movement happening on the computer screen because it's consistently moving. And a video camera will pick that up, but your brain and your eyes work so much more efficiently. We don't see any of that. We don't notice that that's what's happening because your eyes and your brain are consistently focusing throughout the entire time. So think about that 20-20 rule, just to give your eyes a break. Your monitor should be at eye level. You shouldn't be looking up. You shouldn't be looking down. And it should be no more than 18 to 24 inches away. So it shouldn't be really far away, because then you're going to have to focus harder, or kind of stare harder at your screen to probably be able to see. A few more tips when it comes to ergonomics. So think about your feet for a second, and kind of take a step at your desk or wherever you normally just sit down for a moment, and do your feet touch the floor? If your feet don't touch the floor, don't let them dangle. Try putting a few books underneath your feet if you're at home. There are footrests that they make that are pretty inexpensive, but your thighs should be parallel to the floor, but they actually should be a little bit higher, like with your hips slightly higher than your knees. And I'll show you an image here shortly so you can kind of see what that means. Don't give up on your chair. So office chairs are, of course, perfect, but if you are remote working right now and you might not have access to an office chair, try placing a cushion or a folded blanket on your current chair for added support. Maybe you put a small pillow behind your lower back just to add a little extra lumbar support. It's also great too to have, if you have a small pillow, maybe you put it underneath your elbow if you don't have an armrest, and it'll give you something to rest your elbow against a little easier. Don't use your couch as a workstation. While it's tempting, it often leads us to kind of sitting and working in awkward positions for extended periods of time. And then lastly, but of course most importantly, is do take care of yourself. Get up, move around occasionally, drink water, don't skip lunch, and listen to your body. All right, here's an image to kind of capture everything we've talked about in one place. So starting over here, let's start on the right side with the top of your monitor at eye level, so you can kind of see how she's looking straight ahead. She's not having to tilt her chin down or tilt her head up. Her arms are relaxed at her side. And then, of course, she's sitting up nice and straight. Wrists are at or elbows are at a 90-degree angle, so that she's got a straight line from her elbow to her wrist on her desk. Because the more flexion or extension you end up having in your wrist and bending it in one way or the other, if you've had experience with carpal tunnel, then that is not going to help it. Lower legs are at a 90 to 110 degree angle. So you can kind of see how she's not straight down with her knees on the floor, but her knees are actually out just a little bit because she was able to get a footrest or, books or something like that to get your feet elevated, which does help that hip height right here happening. So, of course, a chair with an adjustable seat height is optimal. Again, if you don't have that, use the books underneath your feet will also help get your knees and hips in alignment. And then hips as far back in the chair as possible, which usually makes you kind of sit up straight, because if your hips are slid forward, then you're automatically going to have to slouch and or hunch and lean back. Backrest of the chair supports your curve in your lower back. Again, that's where I was suggesting if you don't have a backrest that kind of curves inward, you can add like a small lumbar pillow or a small decorative pillow, even if you've got one in the house, that you could put there. And then your upper back is straight with your shoulders relaxed at your side. So you kind of pull this all together and then talk a little bit more, circle back to that kinetic chain. Think about the importance of moving more that I've kind of talked about earlier during this presentation. Think about that kinetic chain that we started with. So to prevent and resolve issues with movement, you can do physical activities such as stretching, strengthening, and aerobic exercise. So here's a prime example. If you have tight hip flexors are those things that when you go to lift your knee, you bend right at your hip, and that's a hip flexor. Tight hip flexors flexors come from long periods of sitting, which leads to back pain and other muscle imbalances. So how do you fix that? What do? You would stretch your hip flexors, strengthen your glutes, which are your butt muscles, and core muscles. And when I say core, I'm not just talking about your abdominals, I'm talking about your back too. So things like a plank, I'll have a link out to a video too that you can watch that kind of takes you through some good stretching and chair exercises. But take a walk, just increasing the blood flow to all of the muscles really also helps as well, kind of loosen up. And then that'll help that kinetic chain. So, if you've got the tightness in your hip that's causing an ache in your back, think about stretching out some other muscles that are becoming tight from sitting all day long. And that's just one small example. So here's a link out to chair stretches for head, neck, and shoulders. It's actually me on a chair, so you can do it right at your desk or right wherever you are. You don't need to change clothes. You don't need to be in anything in particular, but they're really helpful to help relax your head, neck, and shoulders. There's some wrist stretches as well for carpal tunnel syndrome on there, or just to help prevent carpal tunnel. But also your wrists and your hands do a lot of work for you all day. So the more love you can show them with some stretches, the happier they'll be in the long term. Neck stretches, kind of leaning your ears side to side, and then even front to back, just dropping your chin down to your chest. You'll feel a big stretch come through the back of your neck, and then even looking up, you'll feel a stretch come through the front of your neck. Cat-cow, take your hands to your knees, and this is in the video as well. And you just kind of round your shoulders. You kind of overarch forward and then overarch back to that spinal mobility, big stretches in your chest and your backs of your shoulders. And then the video goes through as well some shoulder stretches for tension and then extra chest stretches as well. Really important to stretch out the muscles on the front of your chest because, again, like I was saying earlier, you do so much work in front of us all day long. Everything we do is in front of us. We don't do anything behind us. So it's really easy to get tighter and tighter across the center of your chest and those shoulders, which is going to cause more tension and imbalance in the back of your head, neck, and shoulders. Other things here that you can do right at your desk or in your office is, if you're taking that maybe it's that 20-20-20 break, it's that 20-second break, and you're just going to do some chair stands up and down. And then another one, you do some wall push-ups. Maybe there's some chair taps here where you just turn and face your chair and you just touch your feet to your chair. You can even hold onto a wall to help with balance. And then this is even, we're all fans of core exercises, but this is a great one I love for chair. I call them chair crunches. You just scoot your bottom towards the front of your chair, and then you kind of lean back and lean forward, really use those core muscles, try to keep your feet flat on the floor. All of these things are great to get your blood flow going and get, overall just more blood flow in to your muscles and using your heart and lungs and everything too. Just a nice exercise break that also helps reduce your stress levels. There's a couple more resources here that are linked in this slide deck, and I'll make sure they're linked as well after you finish watching this video. So if you're looking for more resources, more information, please click out to our YouTube channel. Lots of videos on exercise there as well for you to use kind of during your daily workflow. And thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions or need anything, feel free to always email us at livelifewell